Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks. Today, the Belarusian regime celebrates Independence Day. The sheer choice of this date raises controversy as the democratic opposition celebrates independence in March. But the state holiday is also an opportunity for Alexander Lukashenko to address the nation and outline his vision of the country's future. And to talk about this, we're joined by Alan Flowers, chairman of the Anglo-Belarusian Society. Good afternoon.
Yes, indeed, I am chair of the Anglo-Belarusian Society, but I have to point out at the start, I am, of course, speaking in an independent capacity today.
I see. Now, let's start with the date itself and its symbolism. So why do you think Lukashenko has chosen to celebrate independence on July 3rd?
Well, it does represent a historic day for the liberation of Minsk from the fascist forces. The Nazi occupation of Minsk was cleared out during the 3rd and 4th of July 1944. But unfortunately, as is often loosely stated, it should then be quite obvious that this was not a day of liberation of all of Belarus. It took until around the 28th of July. It took another over 3 weeks before the Soviet armies liberated Brest, or as it was, Brest-Litovsk, then on what is now right to the west of Belarus. Grodno a little bit earlier, up in the north, up in the northwest, liberated around about 14th, 15th July, about the middle of July. So it's a date picked more, it seems, to avoid the more true, the more relevant, genuine independence days of Belarus, which, when I arrived in 1992 in the new state of Belarus, was celebrated on the day that just a year earlier from when I had arrived there, on the 27th of July 1991, marks the Independence Day that is the equivalent of what Ukrainians celebrate. The Ukrainians have, of course, their very important 24th of August. So for Ukraine, 24th of August is when they declared independence out of the Soviet Union. And for Belarus, it's 27th of July. So for most Belarusians who really strongly believe in a truly independent Belarus, the date that one date at least that should be celebrated is 27th of July, but it gets even more complicated because, of course, at the end of the First World War in 1918, the Belarusian Democratic Republic was declared on the 25th of March. So that is celebrated as a day of true initial independence by Belarusians across the world, and some still in Belarus. So it's a tricky country, and I'm not convinced that any Belarus that becomes a truly free, democratic, independent Belarus, which, by the way, we could talk about, is it independent now or not, in a moment.
I'll ask you this question. I'll absolutely ask you this question. Now, the regime decided to release some political prisoners to mark this grand occasion, the Independence Day. Now, how would you rate this gesture, given the fact that most valuable prisoners stay behind the bars, now, including Poland's Andrzej Poczobut?
Well, I'm glad you're using the phrase gesture. I did see the report yesterday, 2nd of July, another 16. Not quite clear how many are political. I haven't been able to keep up with the latest details. When I checked this morning, names hadn't been released. As we know, the earlier release just a couple of weeks ago as part of the Keith Kellogg visit from America, that was 14 releases, and there was one thrown in there that was actually not what we would define as a political prisoner. And of course, this is just all part of a conveyor belt. We've got to remember there's over 1,160 at the moment. The Vyazna figure today is, I think, 1164. Continuing arrests go on. We've just had the leader of the Belarus rock band Palace arrested in the last week. And these are, as you have, I think, really very rightly said, it's gestures. He's very selective. It's considered he's maybe misread the situation with Sergei Tikhanovsky, that he could perhaps be a bit of a thorn in the side of the diaspora and the Belarus Democratic Forces. In fact, it's proved to be absolutely the opposite. He's working very hard. We're looking at an image of Alice Belitsky there, who is very much a deserving elderly Nobel Prize winner for literature. In the cage we just saw a moment, the elderly man. And there are many, many more leaders of the democratic forces, as they were leaders in 2020, that have now served more than 5 years. There have been a lot of releases. People are serving their term, but more people are being arrested all the time.
And so now I'd like you to listen.
It's a conveyor belt. Nothing is changing. He's arresting almost as many as he's releasing.
Now I'd like you to listen how Alexander Lukashenko calls the political prisoners in Belarus. These are bad people. These are animals, criminals. But I think they are still people. Therefore, before you decide to give your opinion on something, criticize something, and so on, you always ask the question, well, what is the purpose? What is it for? If they died there, it would be very bad for us. And we would be accused of this. So it's politics. It doesn't always have to be straightforward. And I often talk about it because I'm too straightforward at times. But we need to calm down, think about the future, about the goals, about our state. Now, what is Alexander Lukashenko trying to say here? What future is he imagining for Belarus and for the regime itself?
He very much does. Yes. Yeah, very, very good question, given the situation of the efforts to tighten sanctions and the declining economic situation in Russia. You can't lose the hundreds of thousands of men that a population, even if it's just sort of now a bit below its 140 million, there's very significant economic impacts on the Russian economy, which in turn, because Mr. Lukashenko has had to turn his economy very much towards Russia and help elsewhere, Iran is important, China, he really is looking to, once again, as he has done for the 31 years it's coming up soon, this month we will be noting that he took power in July 1994. So for all that period, he's looked east, he's looked west. So that he would dearly like to get a rapprochement, at least to the extent he could sell something more, particularly to America, the potash. So yes, he's looking to the issue of, well, if this is going to be the prolonged war that perhaps Mr. Putin wants it to be, how's his economy? Because if the Belarusian people really do get fed up with standard and quality of life, if he can't keep paying the pensions, which he's very renowned for doing, of course, he may well then have some issues. So whilst he's only really looking to a future where he would retain at least a primary degree of control in the country as long as he's alive, he's also realizing that he maybe needs to cover his options. So there is absolutely no doubt about it. This is an attempt, and a very soft attempt, clearly, to try and soften up the West and America in particular.
Now, there's more from
the European Union's having nothing.
There's more from Lukashenko today. He stated, addressing war veterans, "We should be ready for anything. Instead of remonstrating, soothing, and saying that everything is quiet and calm and nothing will happen. If nothing happens, then it's good. But we should prepare for the worst." Now, I remember Lukashenko saying that they would only invade Ukraine with their tractors. Now, he has obviously changed his war rhetorics. And given the fact that there will be joint military drills, the Zapad 2025, this summer, now, and that the union between Belarus and Russia is getting stronger and stronger. Now, could this be the beginning of an invasion, of a war against NATO, against Baltic states, for example?
Well, on this declared specific Mr. Lukashenko Independence Day, perhaps you're really reminding us that he has very little independence of action when it comes to any military action that is using the lands of Belarus. It's quite clear he has sought to avoid any possible engagement outside Belarus of Belarusian forces, and that is something I'm sure he would continue to wish to do so, because inherently the Belarusian people would very much not wish to have this war going on with Ukraine, and Belarus as a co-belligerent. Does the Belarus state as a co-belligerent does not rest very easily with the fact the Belarus people do not wish to be that. As for the exercises, at the present moment, most analysts are saying that it's very unlikely there would be the resources for anything significant to happen following these exercises. And indeed, there was an announcement a couple of weeks ago from one of the Belarus government, I think perhaps from their Ministry of Defence, that these exercises would not take place near the border areas, but would be in central or southern Belarus. Not that that means much, because if you've got mobility, an overnight 4 or 5 hour drive will get you to the Polish border from most places in central Belarus, but then again, you have got all the logistics and support to think about if anything significant or serious.
So let's then hope it's nothing more than just a regular rattling of a Belarusian saber against Poland. Let's hope that's just what it is. Alan Flowers, chairman of the Anglo-Belarusian Society, today as himself. Thank you very much.
And thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more here on TVP World.